Okay, so let's now manage our files. As we can see, this actor action library, asset actions library. We need to reorder these kind of things. Obviously, both of them are scripted actions. I will hide an engine for now to make it a little bit visible for you. And I will add asset actions because this actually is assets actions, right? And then we can add another thing, which is obviously actor actions. We could probably add or remove these actions here because we are using different folders. Now it's a good naming convention, at least for me, and we just move it here. So we have a blueprint library that only supports the blueprint class. I already told you that we are not using isAction for blueprints because it will not be visible for widgets or other assets that actually contain blueprint graph. We are using the mesh library. We have used data prep functionality from the plugin that I turned on in one of the previous videos. And so we have a textures library when you want to apply some changes. And obviously it supports only texture 2D. And now we create another thing. So as we can see, it inherits from asset action utility. So I will just create another blueprint utility to be asset actor utility. Even if you see here, this is like asset action utility. I can use it. So it will be like the same. We can double check if it's the same. And as we can see, it's the same. So this one will be empty because I want this one to be applied to all the classes. And I will name it apply naming conventions. Because I already told you about that functionality that I would like to add. There are so many plugins on any engine marketplace. Some of them actually paid, but we create it for free and we can use it just normally. And I will show how we can make it from the scratch. I'll use AAU, and this will be like general library. And this is general library, but now we have action library, so maybe we'll add general asset library. Okay, so now what I have here, I will just try to see if it's visible. If I press here, do we see it? Yes, apply naming conventions. This is a 3D model. Apply naming conventions. That's pretty awesome. And even here, maybe material. Is it here? That's right. So how we can create this kind of naming convention? We can create a struct for object and then kind of map it up, and how we can do it. So I will just create maybe naming resources. And in that folder, I will create a struct. This will be a struct. I will name it ST naming conventions. Okay, that's great. And I will use it for now. Now we'll use data table. We can use maybe data asset as well, or try to use the mapping, but for now I'll just use it and I will get this convention. I'll use DT naming conventions. And here, what I'm going to do, so in the struct we have only bool. I will use object. And this object class, it will be object class. And now I can add a prefix. So this is a string that we can use. So this will be added and this will be the object that we named. And now we can kind of add all the things that we want. So if it's a blueprint or actor, we will just call actor. I will name it BP underscore. Another class will be widget blueprint. This actually can be VBP or VB. I've seen this kind of two usages. I will stick with that, but obviously you can change it to VBP if you want to. And now I will use the duplicate again, and this one will be material. That's great. So this is a material, and we can use as well the static mesh, which is SM and texture. So duplicate, it will be texture 2D. It will be T underscore. And the last but not least, obviously we can add all of the files. Even if you press on the right, we see all of the types: sounds, query, media players, which is MP. There are so many types of the process that we can add. The font, the slate brush, which is SB. We have material instance, which is mi, so many of them. So now I will just add static mesh, and it's here, and I will press SM. Okay, so we have this kind of table with all the prefix that we set it up, which is awesome. And now, when I have apply naming conventions, what I can do here, we will need functionality that we can map it. So for that kind of things, to add naming conventions, I will use get selected assets, and I will use a for each loop. And for all of these assets that we have here, we can use get class. And this get class can be used to parse with the functionality that we have found. And for that actually case, we can try to replace all of the naming conventions or apply of the things that we have managed to do here. And we can make it internally, so it will not be visible, but it will be used like in the kind of library that is here. And how we can do it, we can make a blueprint function library, or if you are using just only in that kind of case, I will just make a get naming convention from class. And this will be obviously the functionality, and we'll just make an object, which is a class, as an input, and we just turn it off editor. And I will even hide it. I will make it internal. I can just make it internal. Yes, so it will be like in the internal functionality. It will not be visible because even now if I save, and this will not be visible here. So we do not see internal or anything. Is the texture, it will be just apply naming conventions, and that's it. So this is only the case. So from now I will use object, and this is the object class. And now I'll use the data table, which is get data table row names. It will get all of the rows that we are storing here, and it will be dt naming conventions. And now I'll use for each loop. And now I'll use get data table row. Okay, I will use get data table row. It will be the same one. So the array element will be row name, but we'll use the same naming convention. And now we just use that row, and we have an object class. This object class has to be equal to the one that actually we get it from the object class. So I'll just connect to it, and it will be here. Now I will just use a branch. I'm pressing B and the left mouse button to make it faster. And now I will just make a return node. We want to return when you have found, so it will stop the entire function. Remember actually to add like return nodes. Otherwise the loop will go to until the end of the iteration, right? So now I'll press true. And here I will just make a bool. And this is found naming. If it's a found, I press a bool. But if it goes to the end and do not find all of this kind of naming, I will just press false. And besides that, I will use a prefix. And the prefix will be a string. Prefix. And basically, if it's equal to it, I will use this one. But it's showing me here. I think I cannot put here. Okay, so I need to just add here, but it will be added at the same time. And we just use the prefix that is stored here. And here we can just leave it empty because actually we do not even need this kind of naming thing. I just can make it if it's empty because it is empty. So now I'll make that function actually pure. So this is just our pure function, and we will use this for our functionality. So it will get from everything. So this is a prefix, and if it's found, it's empty. Maybe we can use it's not empty because I think it's here, or maybe it's only in array. No, it's only in array functionality, but it's okay. So we just parse and false, or we can revert that bool value. And if it's empty, basically we can store some of the information. For example, we can use a show log. And show log will be, for example, I don't know, we can make literal text, for example. We can store it like by the end of the functionality. But we can use maybe make literal text. It will be add no DT naming, no class in DT maybe, and I will use make messages, make literal text, and I will make maybe a format text will be better. I don't know why I keep using this make literal text, but obviously it just is a process thing. So we can find add class, add class. It's a variable input pin to your DT naming convention table. So this will be a class, and the class we cannot just copy it over, but we can use get class display name, and it would display the normal class. And if it's not, which I found for this convention, I'll just rename assets. So I will just rename asset, but still we are adding a prefix. So if it's a prefix, we want to not add the prefix to the object that already have a prefix. But now I will just use it and I will show you and visualize the problem that we can encounter, especially before doing this kind of thing. So this is just renaming assets, and yeah, it's a prefix. So this is the prefix. I will just append, right? This is append, and our append will be from object display name. We can even try to use it so, but it will just use the name. So it will append. If I use it now, for example, and try to apply functionalities, I will just remove this kind of thing. I'll just remain with showcase, and we have all this kind of functionalities here. I'll just remove full showcase or something like that. I just can mark all of these, maybe except by level because I haven't added that, but I will show you in a moment how we can demonstrate it. Now we'll use mat. Again, I will mark it. And I will press scripted actions, and I will use apply naming conventions. And yeah, this is no class in DT. As we can see, it is just static mesh actor. And for that actually case, because we might actually use as well the static mesh actor or a blueprint, but still we can kind of use the BP because it uses the same, we have to add it. But we can see actually how it's visualized. So static mesh actor, if I add it now, and even if we rename that kind of, for example, texture, if I go here again, as you can see, it will add another T. And it's a little bit problematic because we do not want to. So we want to add another check that I have shown in the past. Basically, we just make, if it's not empty, maybe I will just short it now because to your data table. And maybe we can just make display name. So because sometimes it just doesn't display well, but it's getting the class, and yeah, this is the object. We are getting the object class from that. And now if we have this kind of thing, now what are we doing? Before renaming, we just check will be from the object name, and this is the prefix. Actually, return value should be no, it's not the prefix, sorry. We are just appending after that. So the prefix will be from here. So if it starts with the prefix, it will not rename it. And now if we have the branch T, it will be parsed, but will not add it, right? And if we remove it, I will see naming now. I can apply naming conventions, and now it has been renamed. So there was a problem that our blueprints haven't been renamed. Actually, our widget have been renamed, but sometimes blueprints they are a little bit buggy. Sometimes we need to restart, really. I haven't encountered the problem because as you can see, it's add showcase to your data table. But now, for example, I will make it maybe a class name. Class display name. Sometimes it doesn't even displays the class properly. I'll go to naming conventions, add blueprint to your data table. So obviously, if it's a blueprint, we just add an actor. It's read like that. So what are we doing? We are just making another functionality, and we just make a blueprint. Actor Bay can be a blueprint, and many things actually can be replaced. So if it's a blueprint, I will just name B. And now if I press it now again and apply naming conventions, as you can see, it has been renamed. Same for static mesh actors. I can mark all of them, apply naming conventions, and it will be added. So this is how we create a data table assets, naming conventions. Remember that you can populate that list and create an assets and add maybe a very single object that we can find from our content browser. Like cinematics, it can be ls, it can be enumeration, it can be a, st would be for a structure. So there are many ways to recreate that.
If you're interested in mastering Unreal Engine editor extensions with C++ and Blueprints, check out my course on Udemy. It covers everything from scripted asset actions to data validators and actor actions.